Good evening, hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Democratic Newsroom. Well, things got a tad bit hot and unruly the last time around, so I've got myself a bit of a prop, a gavel, and I am not afraid to use it if things go out of order.
So, not on us, I hope.
Huh?
Not on us, I hope.
You never know. So just be scared. All right, so let me quickly introduce our band of editors that we have with us here. We have Rajdeep Sardesai, Milan, who follows the education beat. In just about a minute, I'm going to tell you what we'll be debating this evening, Akshita and Gaurav Sawant. So the big contentious debate on the Democratic Newsroom this evening is the revision of NCERT textbooks. For the 7th standard, 3 textbooks have been rolled out and a massive controversy, contention, division in terms of how these textbooks have been perceived. Has history been omitted purposely? All of that coming up over the course of the next 45 minutes. First up, Milan, will you take us through the entire controversy?
Yes, of course, as you know that there have been many deletions, many omissions in the NCERT textbook. So not just class 7th, but class 8th, class 6 onwards, they have been releasing new books. And the major contention happens to be the revision and rewriting of the Mughal history in all these books. The way that we used to read the NCERT used to be full of Mughal history, right from, the Delhi Sultanate onwards. The entire Mughal Empire used to be what we studied in history textbooks. And now what has happened is the social science, at least in initial classes, let's say 6th, 7th and 8th, have been clubbed into one book, and everything has been made like a glossary, so you can gloss over it. A lot of the Mughal history was taught to us in a very rosy, happy way. That has changed a lot with the NCERT putting forward some really aggressive ways of the Mughals and the way they ruled the country, especially when
highlighting the brutality of the Mughals.
Yes, highlighting brutality, highlighting the cruelness of their reign in India, and certainly historians and educationists have had a problem with that, and some also support the fact that today's children must know why there is so much hatred meted out towards.
And strangely, all of this comes with a caveat.
Of course, it comes with a caveat. They say it's the darkest period in our history, and that caveat is we don't take responsibility for what the Mughals did maybe hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but we do want to show what they have done, which is killing of people, massacring women, massacring children.
And it should not impact the current way of how people view.
Of course. History should be read as history, and it should not impact.
That's the caveat.
Yes, of course. That's the caveat. The thing is that this thing comes in the class 8th. It's an initial stage for a child to be reading all this. And should that be part of a class 8 textbook is another question. Maybe they could have added this in the higher classes.
So objective or subjective, can you omit history by omitting textbooks or chapters from textbooks? That's the big question. That's what we're debating. I want to quickly open up the floor on the Democratic Newsroom, and it's very, very quiet, but it's going to get quite raucous very soon, I promise. But Rajdeep, would you want to go first, and then Gaurav Sawant?
No, I don't think it's going. I don't think it's going to get raucous. Let me say this: that this book. Let me put first a caveat. Most governments, right or left, tend to see history through a political lens. That's been, it's been the case for decades. So this is not unusual. Every NCERT revision leads to some kind of political controversy. The problem I have, Preeti, with this particular NCERT book is the oversimplification, which to my mind is extremely dangerous. And I'll tell you why. Because it reduces complex historical figures, many of whom ruled for 40, 50 years, to cut and paste cardboard cutout figures. Heroes and villains. Reduces centuries of rule between the Dark Ages and the Golden Age. If you're a Muslim Mughal ruler for over 500 years, and they ruled between the Sultans and the Mughals for 500-600 years, you must be brutal and oppressive. And these are the Dark Ages. If you're Hindu rulers, that's noble and enlightened. That, to my mind, worryingly, is a falsification of history.
Right.
Because you students won't be told in this book. Now, you must listen now.
No, I'm listening.
Akbar fought Rana Pratap in Haldighati famously.
Right. Yeah.
His general was Man Singh. Aurangzeb's general, who forces Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj into the Treaty of Purandar, by which Shivaji has to give up some of his forts, was Jai Singh, a Rajput. Many of the Mughal rulers worked alliances with the Rajputs. That's the nature. They were building empires. They were rulers. The fact is also, this book won't tell you that temples were raised not just by Mughals and by an Aurangzeb, but also by Hindu rulers. That a Rajendra Chola goes, destroys the Chalukyan empire and also destroys Jain temples along with it. Buddhist stupas, shrines were destroyed well before the sultans enter the picture in this country. If the aim was, as the book claims, to give students an objective view of history, I'm sorry, on that very basic premise it fails. This is a terribly written book. That is my biggest problem. You write history, please write it well so that people are encouraged to read much more about history. You reduce history and historical figures, 45 years of Akbar's rule, to one incident that happened in Chittorgarh and destroy and call him brutal and oppressive. There are many other rulers also who will be called brutal and oppressive.
All right, let me
so that's my problem with it. Otherwise,
made your point.
Every government wants to see history through a political lens.
All right, because we always have all sides of the narrative or the subject. Gaurav, would you want to weigh in? I love how well regulated this debate is turning out to be. Everyone's allowing. This has worked.
No, we don't want another walkout.
We'd
rather
on,
have
Gaurav.
Rajdeep stay and listen to to every point of view. And he must, and so must everybody else. You see, there's an old African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. Now the lions are writing. The sons of the soil are writing. So yes, there will be no glorification of invaders and their descendants. The truth about invaders and their descendants will come out. Yes, Hindu kingdoms and kings also attacked each other, but did they call themselves Ghazis? Did they call the others Kafirs? Did they seek to convert and plunder and enslave the way Islamic State does today? Is how the Mughals did then. And I'm sorry, so maybe 100 years later, when you have a very pro-Islamic State regime, when they write the history of what happened to the Yazidis, they'll say, so what? It was done by Adolf Hitler, so it was done by Islamic State, so it was done by Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb, I mean, just look at what the Mughal emperors did. So, the way they say, so many years of Akbar and reduced only to one massacre of Chittor, at least fortunately now, people are talking about the massacre of Chittor. They weren't even talking about the massacre.
It was written by Marxist historians. Marxist historians wrote about the siege of Chittorgarh. That is the reality of India, which you don't recognize.
Unfortunately for Rajdeep,
you may not have read about the siege of Chittorgarh.
Again, I did not interrupt him, but he cannot let anybody else speak because his arguments are so weak that
these
he has to
intervene.
One second. Rajdeep, allow him. Rajdeep, allow him.
Personal remarks.
Yeah, let's not get into personal remarks.
How can you say arguments are weak?
Don't get into
personal remarks.
I am liking this. 1 second. Okay, 1 second. No, this is also not. Okay, 1 second. Can we get 1 second? Okay, I'm the moderator. I am the moderator.
I'm happy to listen without personal remarks.
Rajdeep, allow 1 second.
Did I even mention him by name?
Rajdeep, don't.
Did I even mention him by name?
Allow
No,
this.
he must
Yes,
not.
1 second.
He must apologize.
Extend
I
the
will
same
stay
courtesy that you were extended. Allow him to speak. Gaurav,
Personal remarks.
refrain from personal remarks. Both of you. Refrain from personal remarks. Extend the same courtesy that you are extended. Make your point.
I will just give the simple aspect, and I'll come to Akbar and Aurangzeb and their brutality in just a moment. In fact, the entire Mughal and pre-Mughal, the slave dynasty, for example, in just a moment. But this is the first time perhaps you're reading about sons and daughters of the soil who resisted foreign invaders throughout. How many of you can name me 5 sons and daughters of the soil that you may have read in history? Can you tell me what was Kittur ki Rani Chinnamma doing? Can you tell me what Rani Durgavati was doing? But let me read out in sequence, right? Prithviraj Chauhan, Hati Hamir Singh of Mewar, Rani Durgavati, Maharana Pratap, Chhatrapati Shivaji, Chhatrapati Sambhaji, Banda Singh Bahadur, Peshwa Bajirao, Rani Chinnamma. I want to come to the Battle of Saraighat and Lachit Borphukan. How many of you have read about Lachit Borphukan in your history textbooks? That's been introduced now. You know why? Because sons and daughters of this soil constantly fought foreign invaders, and that's coming out for the first time now.
Can I now move towards Akshata? Akshata, would you want to give your 2 cents into this fast, very quickly, a debate that is getting rather heated?
We were expecting a calm one this week,
Yeah,
but it's
we
already
were.
gotten heated. Look, I will only say this, which is that when I studied, I remember so much learning about Mughals, like it was the greatest empire in this country. Today, when I look back, I don't think so, because I've learned so much more. I've had exposure. As a student, you don't, which is why I say why this debate is very needed about, what chapters are there, what inclusions are there. But I feel that the obsession over Mughals needs to end, and the glorification of Mughals needs to end. Even the incidents that Rajdeep is referring to did happen. Are we going to claim that it's fiction that's been put in the textbook? It's not. It's facts. It's what happened. Akbar has been referred to as the Great. Akbar the Great is what we've always known him as. There is a change now where you're also hearing about other incidents. I'd much rather have 10 chapters on the Cholas, 10 chapters on Rajaraja Chola. Instead, what did I hear about Akbar the Great? And I feel that narrative needs to change.
I think what Akshita is actually speaking about is more regional representation that has come forward with these
I grew up in
NCERT
Chennai.
books.
I studied in Chennai. I didn't know about the Cholas as much
Okay,
as I know
I
about the
just,
Mughals.
before I go to Rajdeep, if I'm allowed to just give in my 2 cents, I think there is so much obsession with how much of the Mughals is included, how much of it has been deleted, that we are missing the woods for the trees. And why I say that is, and I'll go back, I'm an army kid. Right, I studied in the army public school, and when I was in my 6th standard, we used to have a teacher, and most all teachers were in the current, connotation or definition of it, nationalist in nature. And I remember one of them, our history teacher, telling us that, isn't she glad that we are not learning history the way Pakistan is being taught history, which is through a very clear lens of, omitting most of their history and glorifying what they want to glorify, so which is a convoluted way of learning history, number one. Number two, I'll tell you what my issues with this textbook are. You've gone through it, Milan.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to bring in more of the Mughals, less of the Mughals, great. You want to talk about your own dynasties, great, talk about it. I have issues with omissions, number one, of all social movements in this country. Why shouldn't a 7th and a 6th standard or an 8th standard child learn about the Chipko movement, Narmada Bachao movement, all of that?
In medieval Indian history?
It's been omitted.
It's been removed.
It has been removed. Allow me, Gaurav. I allowed you, allow me. So all social movements have been removed. So all form of protests in this country, which this country stands on, have been removed. All of that, all mentions of that. All mentions of riots, Milan, have been removed, including 2002 Gujarat, including most riots that have taken place in, I would reckon, in the last 30 years. All mentions of riots have been completely removed from these textbooks. I have issues with that. I think kids nowadays, when you're a 6th, 7th standard, you need to understand what your country went through.
So, Preeti, you're talking about modern history.
Yes.
We are yet to see many more changes in that. But yes, in the last subsequently released NCERT books for class 11th and 12th, yes, these Chipko movements, the Narmada Bachao movement was removed. The reference to Godhra riots has been removed.
The reference to many riots have been removed.
Yes. Particularly the assassination
politics
of Gandhi has also
has
been removed.
has been curtailed.
I know that, yeah. Curtailed and the
Nathuram Godse.
Yes.
On how...
Yes.
Tell me, Gaurav, wouldn't you demonize Nathuram Godse?
Is this book about modern Indian history? Because
it's all that has been removed. All of that has been removed. I'm asking you a question.
What is this book?
I'm talking about the larger cuts that have been made.
Let me flip this around. Let me flip this around. Why didn't we raise these questions about whether there were chapters on the emergency?
I have a question. There is a chapter on the emergency.
I
have a question. Should Nathuram Godse be glorified for our children? Yes or no?
Nobody in his right mind would ever glorify an assassin, but
But an entire chapter criticizing Nathuram Godse is being removed.
Is, here we have people who've glorified Aurangzeb, the way the Mughals, and this thing about, Mughals were ruling India, Mughals brought culture to India.
So the way
Can I just come to one point?
Nathuram
Since I'm
Godse,
making
you
a point,
shouldn't
You shouldn't glorify Aurangzeb, you shouldn't glorify Nathuram
No,
Godse.
hold on. You know what the Mughals did? There was a brave Sikh general called Banda Singh Bahadur. His 4-year-old son was beheaded. That son's heart was put in his father's mouth. You know why? Because he refused to accept Islam. Was he the only one? Guru Tegh Bahadur, the 9th Sikh Guru, beheaded. Why? He refused to accept Islam. The 5th Sikh Guru, Guru Arjan Dev, this was Jahangir. Way before Aurangzeb, Jahangir had him tortured and killed. There is a pattern that you just choose to gloss over.
Rajdeep wants to come in. Rajdeep, come in.
Look, nobody in history books that I read certainly glorified Aurangzeb. Let me be very clear about this. This is a falsification of history. Maybe it was read differently in schools and colleges that I didn't that I went to. Certainly in the school and college that I went to, my history book certainly did not glorify Aurangzeb. A. B. Frankly, in my final exams, the Cholas were an important chapter and a question in my book. They also have a major role to play, as do the Mughals. The fact is, these are all dynasties that emerged over the years, the Chalukyas, Rashtrakutas. You can well argue that enough prominence was not given to certain regional kingdoms, overemphasis was given to the Mughals. I'm willing to accept that argument. But if 50 years or 45 years that Akbar ruled is reduced in the book to the massacre that he ordered at the age of 25 of some 30,000 civilians, forgetting that this was the same Akbar who then removed jizya tax and moves towards building a truly pluralistic society of a kind that I think was a big challenge at the time. We are talking of in India 500 years ago.
Learn about
But
it,
of course I learned about it. You see, you didn't learn about it doesn't mean I did.
That's what I'm
That's
saying.
my
You
problem.
didn't. Sir,
Either the history
that's
book.
exactly what I referred to.
No,
I
I certainly made every.
Sir, I said exactly that Akbar the Great is all that we were taught about.
No, so he was a great ruler.
I'm saying that's the
45
only
No,
thing.
1 minute. I am a great admirer of the great Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, right? I think he was one of the most valorous rulers this country has had. Am I also, if I were by the same logic, am I to look at what happened in Surat?
Convert any, did Shivaji convert anyone? Did Shivaji have any woman raped or enslaved?
Gaurav, I have no problem with putting all those facts in the public domain.
But it is so horrifying that we speak of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj in the same voice as a Mughal Aurangzeb.
I am saying whether it is a Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj who was defending his kingdom against invasions that were taken against the Mughals who were trying to spread into the Maratha kingdom, or whether he had alliances at times with the sultans if necessary to take on the Mughals. These were all rulers, emperors who were defending their kingdom above all else. I am not equating them. All I am saying, an objective reading of history would ensure that every leader's strengths and their weaknesses would be put out. Please do that. That's all I'm asking. Let children not reduce history to ye hero hai or ye villain hai. There are rulers today who destroyed temples in Kashmir, Hindu rulers who destroyed temples in Kashmir. Now, how am I going to look at that ruler? Because that part you don't want to show. You want to say only Muslims destroyed temples.
Also, then they're being selective in how you're viewing the Mughals.
I'm not being, I agree
But
with
we
you.
are saying that the Mughals did this and this and this, but they also did this and this. That means you're trying to say that, there's not a holistic view. There is no, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about an objective view of one side and not of the other side.
I'm saying, ma'am, show that darker side and the brighter side. To say that this entire period was a dark age for India for 400, 500 years is, I think, a misreading of history. There were strengths, there were weaknesses.
Were there not brutalities?
There were,
and when you talk of Chhatrapati
brutalities
Shivaji Maharaj, let me explain that.
Show me Chhatrapati Shivaji's so-called brutality that you mentioned. Show it to me. Show me one instance of Chhatrapati Shivaji. You know the way the Mughal brutality.
Shivaji Maharaj, let us say, is a leader, is a ruler of the highest order. I accept you.
He said, "Samman karo har mahila ka."
So therefore, what are we trying to say? You're trying to say that the Mughal Muslims were intolerant, oppressive rulers. That's what you're trying to say. Were intolerant, oppressive rulers. Hindu rulers were noble and enlightened. When a Rajendra Chola goes and destroys the entire Chalukyan empire, including Jain temples, what will you call it?
Why are we making this a Hindu-Muslim issue?
Because that's how the book is written. That's
No,
my
it is
problem.
not.
The book is written as heroes and villains.
So where does it talk about Hindus and Muslims?
All right,
Effectively,
1 second.
that's the message.
We've got to get some order. I want to use my prompt.
No,
1 second.
I sincerely want to say this is
labels like cruel and brutal are used for Mughal rulers. Will you use it for other rulers?
It is cruel and brutal. Can I?
That's all it is.
Hear me out.
One at a time, guys.
Okay, so hear me out. In 1528, Babur in Malwa Chanderi battle killed all male members, enslaved all their women. He made a mountain of the skulls of the pagans. Show me one Hindu ruler who made a mountain of skulls of fellow Hindus. Battle of
Look at the destruction that the great Ashoka carried out at Kalinga.
Battle of
Look at the destruction that Ashoka carried out at Kalinga that eventually led to his conversion.
He called himself a Ghazi. He called pillar of head. Babur Nama records it. Battle of Chittorgarh we've spoken of.
one
the
second.
beheading. Show me
Gaurav,
one Hindu
okay,
ruler
I'm
who
running
had
out
a
of
Mughal
time. Allow
beheaded.
me to get Akshita.
Because he did not convert
Akshita,
to
make
Hinduism.
your time.
To me,
Please,
there is
there
a
is no
Akshita,
equivalence. False
one
equivalence.
second.
There is
Akshita.
a marked difference between battles and brutalities that were targeting and clearly against certain groups, certain sects, and trying to ensure that you wipe out people. Big difference, first. Secondly, I think it's very worrying if we make our history Hindu-Muslim and we try to
been made
categorize.
that.
No, it is
How?
not.
The caveat.
That's what I said.
Read the
Haldi Ghat-
caveat.
You-
Read
this
the
book-
caveat
This
in
book
this
should
book.
have said that Haldi Ghati, the general, was Raja Mansi. That Aurangzeb's
No,
prime
when you
generals
t-
were the
when-
likes
when
of
you
Jai
say-
Singh.
when you
Please
say-
tell
when
the
you
world
use the
that.
words cruel,
Every
when you
single
use the
word
words
that.
Everybody who
when
reads
you use the
history knows
word
that.
cruel, isn't Aurangzeb cruel? Wasn't
Of
he
course
cruel?
he is.
That's all. That's
But you
what the
can-
book
Babar,
says.
Babar, Jahangir,
No, no,
is
that's-
Babar cruel
one
or
second.
not
That's
cruel?
the problem.
Is
One
Jahangir
second.
One,
cruel
what
or
about
not
allow
cruel?
others?
Please
One.
understand
Milan.
If we have to add a
Milan, can I
caveat-
get Milan?
Please
Guys, Milan.
understand that this is just a 7th and 8th class textbook. What Rajdeep sir's mentioned, what Gaurav's mentioned will be added subsequently in other books. But I will agree to Akshita's point. There needs to be some greater representation. I have never seen Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj being discussed in an NCERT book.
I had a full book on him. I grew up in Mumbai. Maybe I grew up in Mumbai.
I also grew up in Mumbai.
I had a full book on. I had a full book on Chhatrapati
Did you
Shivaji.
read about
Shivaji.
Lachit Borphukan?
That's what I'm
Did you
saying,
read about
sir,
Lachit Borphukan?
that Maharashtra, yes,
We
Maharashtra,
certainly had a full
Marathi-
book on
Sir,
Chhatrapati Shivaji
Maharashtra
Maharaj.
textbooks had Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. I also grew up in Bombay, just like you grew up in Bombay. But NCERT is a national curriculum.
Exactly.
The national curriculum, sir, never had Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, never had Shambhaji
No,
Maharaj.
it had Chhatrapati
And it is
Shivaji
good
Shivaji
that
Maharaj.
it is being
Chhatrapati
discussed.
Shivaji Maharaj was always
One
seen
second,
Just
was
a part
no,
of
no, no,
sir.
no,
I
not
learned
part
about
of
Chhatrapati
Did you learn?
Shivaji,
Did you
but not
learn? Did you learn
I learned
Lachit
about-
Borphukan?
No,
one
Lachit
second.
Borphukan has
Lachit
been added
Borphukan
here.
has been added for
Lachit
the first
Borphukan
time.
has been added.
As
Rani
someone from
Durgavati.
Assam, you would never have heard anything
Okay, I'm
about
taking
Lachit Borphukan.
final comments. We are giving all of our panelists just about a minute each to conclude. Gaurav, let's begin with you. You have a minute.
Sons and daughters of the soil who constantly resisted foreign invaders and their descendants and fought against the atrocities, their representation is being added. We need a lot more of the resistance that was constantly there. And the fact, when they say Mughlon ne 800 saal raj kiya ya 600 saal raj kiya, the Marathas defeated the Mughals. Mahatma Sindhya, Shah Alam II was his puppet in Delhi. The Sikhs came and ruled Delhi. All of that.
Right.
I know
Akshita,
this because I've done a master's
one
degree in
hour,
history.
1 minute.
This needs to be taught.
Akshita,
I
1
feel
minute.
that for the longest time we've glorified Mughals. If you add one paragraph talking about something that they've done, I don't think, it's a big crime because you've glorified them for so long. Secondly, Hindu-Muslim, I feel we shouldn't make our history about Hindu versus Muslim, 1:1, 2:1, any of that, and to add caveats to every single chapter on Mughal saying, but Hindus also did this, makes it rather ugly.
No, but the caveat is in the book where they say that whatever is
If you
written in
make
the
it
book should
Hindu
not.
versus Muslim.
It is a caveat. What is the caveat in the end?
The caveat says
The
that
caveat is in this book.
No,
In-
what my
the-
ca- what I'm referring to is
you're
something
saying it
different.
shouldn't be
The
Hindu
caveat
Muslim. You're
says
saying it
that
shouldn't be
you-
Hindu
it
Muslim.
should
Here
be
the
Hindu
caveat.
versus
Here the
Muslim.
caveat in the book.
they've not explicitly said Hindu Muslim, but they have said that these rulers did what they did hundreds of years ago, and hence we should not blame anyone today for it.
So you're already inculcated
being
in
written
the
a way,
book. So
yeah,
then
it's being
it's
implicitly
insinuated.
mentioned.
It's
Yeah.
insinuated.
Are you saying then that it's because they're Muslim? No.
It's insinuated.
But
It's
they wouldn't say that.
Why would you
Saying
say
it's
it?
because of their
Why
religion.
would you
Right.
say it otherwise? One second.
it's written,
Rajdeep,
it's
1
written,
minute.
yeah.
Please conclude. You're saying it in the book. Rajdeep, 1 minute.
All I'm going to say is that I believe that history cannot be reduced, a complex and nuanced history, even if it is for class 7 and 8, needs to be read in a manner that encourages students to see varying interpretations of history that are objective to the extreme, to the extent that is possible in a school textbook. Therefore, the worst thing you can do in history is, as I said at the very outset, reduce rulers to cardboard size figures. So and so is
Right.
brutal and oppressive, so and so is noble and enlightened. Please tell me much more about them, their strengths, their weaknesses, the various alliances that were forged. Because the moment you start talking
Right.
about alliance building, for example, between the Mughals and Rajputs, then your history becomes a little bit
Okay.
more complex. You don't want that history to be made complex, and therefore it results at times to falsification. We've seen it in political science textbooks, for example, the way the Babri Masjid has been looked at, the way 2002 is looked at, the way emergency is looked
Right.
at, and different
Okay,
governments
I
have done
wanna
it.
go- I wanna-
I am saying, please give the students something
Okay.
where they can enrich
I wanna
themselves
bring
with
in-
history without reducing it
Okay.
to Mughals and Muslims, brutal and oppressive. Hindu leaders,
Okay, I wanna binaries. Don't tie them into binaries.
Please
Okay.
don't have these binaries. Give
Right.
a young
Milan,
person
I'd like
a
to-
nuanced point. And I agree with Gaurav. Please.
Oh, that's a
please
good one to end with.
Please push these regional histories. Tell me about the Ahoms. Tell me about the Cholas. Tell me more if you want about the Chalukyas, about the Rashtrakutas, about various dynasties. No problem with that. That I have no problem with. But whichever
It's a good one.
Rani
Good one to
Chennamma.
end with.
Absolutely.
It's a great one to end with. I am so glad.
But be willing. But be willing to.
Okay, I need to.
Let's quickly
Can we-
also
no,
keep
we
in
don't
mind
have the
the
time.
fact is fact that I still don't have my
We
my
don't have the
temple.
time.
You know
I just-
1 second, I wanna-
why
I
was
just
the
want to
Mathura
say-
temple targeted?
Okay, I
Why
wanna
was
get it.
the temple
I
Kashi
want to
Vishwanath
bring
targeted?
in Milan
I
for
want those
one
temples
final
civilizational
20
heritage back.
seconds. And Milan, the fact is, this is just the beginning. Because
This
there
is-
are
yes.
massive cuts that have
Yes,
been made in
yes.
textbooks, right from the 6th standard, going all the way to the 12th standards. And
Yes.
many of the issues highly contentious, where modern history is concerned, where political science is concerned, where even social science is concerned.
There are cuts being made in Delhi University syllabus for the MA political science. So this is
Yes,
nothing.
this is- yes.
But what I just want to say in my short comment is, if you want to show that Babur was cruel, Akbar was cruel, Aurangzeb was cruel, please also show each and every side, every problem that we have faced, everything that has happened in the Godhra riots, everything that happened in emergency, who killed Gandhi, everything should be shown, or else we'll need to just
Or
keep
else,
selecting
and I
things.
need
Yeah.
to end immediately right now, or else you're a Pakistan, where kids in Pakistan have
Exactly.
grown up believing they won 65 and 71, which they didn't. But we're going to leave it at that. Objective, subjective, how do you view these cuts? We've given our views, and rather loudly so. We're going to end it there. Thank you for joining us.